Well, hello, folks. It's Jeffrey Shaw here from the studios of Radio FM88 here in Brisbane. And the photo behind it is the train that goes from Cairns up to Mareeba, Kuranda, I should say. And it's a great scenic trip for any of those English people who want to come to Australia. In the meantime, without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to our co-host in the UK. He's just below me today. I've changed it around from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. We've flipped it around. So without further ado, so hello to you, Priti, Pauline.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. It's great to be here again. Oh, look, I've swapped. I'm on the top now. Very good. Okay. And I'm delighted to invite Rob to the show today. Rob Husband, greetings.
Good morning. Lovely to be, or good afternoon or evening for different places, but lovely to be here.
Excellent. Now, Rob, I understand you know the previous two guests that we've had, Penny Maver and Munai. Is that true? Is that true?
I know Penny. I think I've met Munai, but I know Penny. I know Penny better from an organisation called the Argonauts. They were like a conscious leadership organisation that we did some. Both were facilitators as part of that community for a number of years, and Penny still works with them.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, based on the myth and the story of the Jason and the Argonauts. So that's
you wear sheep's clothing then?
We don't. We tend not to. But it's a possibility. Yes, it's a possibility.
All right. And so today you've chosen where activism meets contemplation. So tell us a little bit about that before we get into a little bit more details.
Yeah, I suppose what the reason I sort of chose that title is that, so I'm 61, so I'm getting a little bit older, you know, and you say I have. Hopefully, my mum died on her 100th birthday, so hopefully I've got like 39 years to go. So, but also I look back at so some of the rhythms and the patterns of my own life. You know, I suppose they become a little bit more important to me as I get a bit older, and I've realised that I've always had this rhythm and this relationship between the activism and the contemplation. So at heart, I'm an activist. Yeah. So I see. So and this is two parts. That one is, if I see a need, I will step in and I will try and find some way to resolve that need, whatever it is. So, for example, I did lots of work with rough sleepers, and so people sleeping on the streets, and I would, as opposed to, put a bit of money in there in a pot or something, I would take them home for tea, and I ended up renting a house where rough sleepers came to live. And so at heart, I see something and I want to do something. And then I've realized that one of the things that can lead to is quite quickly is burnout. I realized that I needed to find ways to resource myself a little bit better. So I went through, and this pattern, I suppose now, as I'm a bit older, is it feels like I can do that on a bit of a daily basis. Whereas before it would be, I would be really active for about 5 years, nearly burn myself out, and then go deep into contemplation for 5 years or 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So I think the balance has become a little bit closer together, but I'm aware that those two things have always been, I suppose, a rhythm in my own life that I've been trying to integrate a bit better. So that's why the title really.
So would it be fair to say that the activism is doing part of you, and the contemplation is the being part?
Yeah, that would be one way of looking at it. And I come from a tradition where, I suppose, activism, making a difference in the world, is really important. So I think there's a really healthy part of me that wants to, one of those phrases about leave the world a better place than I found it. And there's probably a less helpful bit that is about my value is in I'm valued if I make a difference. Do you know what I mean? So there's these two parts. There's probably a healthy part of that activism and probably a less healthy part. And I think the contemplation, the being, helps me to sit in. Actually, I have value just because I'm a human being. I have value because I'm alive. Yeah, and I can choose how I respond to what I see in the world. So I think, yeah, you're right. Yes, the being and the doing part. Yeah.
Ah. And you mentioned about tradition. What kind of tradition are we talking about
Yeah.
in
Okay.
your world?
In my world,
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. It's an interesting one for me to talk about because there's quite a motive for me. So I grew up in a very strong Christian evangelical community, and
Okay.
which had a real mixture of brilliant things and problematic things. So
Mhm.
I learnt the value of community from a
Yes.
really young age. You know, about what it means to share life with other people and other families. That was a real positive thing, and I think that's something that has stayed with me. There was a lot of unhelpful dogma, and 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 the phrase at the time which was being used was I don't really like the phrase, but the phrase was about heavy shepherding. Do you know what I mean? So there was strong steering on how you should live your life from those in authority. Do you know what I mean? So that was what I grew up in, and it was quite a strong tradition. So it was a real mixture of really beautiful learning, you know, friendships that I still have with people. It gave me an opportunity to do lots of music. So there's some beautiful stuff. And I've probably spent the latter part of my life trying to unpick some of that stuff, some of that dogma and some of that tradition and how it's impacted me and sat in my body for years.
Wow.
Hey,
Okay.
Rob,
Yeah.
when you the community and all that stuff, you took me back to the Arches and you took me to Coronation Street and EastEnders because that's about building community, you know, because that was an intrinsical part of, you know, you're in the UK and you got all your little counties and you all got different inflections and different accents, but those three shows seem to be the one that bridged the whole of the UK and brought people together.
Yeah, I think there's something really interesting, especially in certain parts of the UK, where the sense of community is really, really important, really, really important, and really strong. So I'm down in the southwest of sort of Devon, sort of and yeah, so and there's strong local communities, and I find that really it's really helpful. It's really positive. And then, as on an individual level, I also have a caution around sort of community because of some of the stuff I experienced within a strong community. So there's these two, a push and a pull towards, I love community. I long for it. I probably search for it. And then also there's a bit of, is this community safe? Do you know what I mean? So there's these two things that are going on. I mean, you talk about EastEnders or, you know, Coronation Street, and you see that played out, don't you, in those sort of those shows about the strength of community and support, and also some of the unhelpful stuff that goes on in communities. So yeah, I think that was and is still a big part of my, I suppose, hope for the world, that we learn to do that community thing better. We do it well. We do it well. Do you know what I mean? But that we continue to do it well, and we probably are better at being honest about what it means to be in community. You know, so for example, you know, some of the communities, you know, when I was at this church community that I was involved in, you know, there was some real sort of power games going on, and inappropriate use of power. And it doesn't get called out. You know what I mean? And I see that in my organizational work as well. We have organizations do beautiful things with people. They support people, and they do great work, and they can have great community sense. And then there's this other thing floating around how do we use power? And I think if you're going back to this activism and contemplation, the contemplation helps me ground myself, so I'm not impacted by the power games that I see go on in communities or in organizations. Otherwise I rush in and try and fix it.
So that's your default.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. And I have to, the contemplation, the meditation helps me stay away from that, that default.
Okay. Now, I understand that you're a co-founder of Space to Think.
Yep.
And right at the very beginning of that, there's the posing of three questions. Like, what do you do? Why do you do what you do? And how can you do what you do best? So I thought to myself, let's turn the tables. Let's see what Rob has to say about what do you do?
Yeah, it's coming my way. What do I do? Yeah, so it's really interesting. So, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a weird thing that happens to me sometimes, and usually when I've been working with an organization for a while. So I work as a facilitator and coach. So I'll be working alongside an organization, and there's this little phrase that comes up, and people will say, "Oh, Rob, just turn up and be you. That's enough. Just you being you in the organization." And I bring some curiosity, and I'll bring some humor, and I'll bring a bit of challenge. Just turn up and be you, because that's when you're most useful. So on one level, what do? I turn up as me. And if that works, if that works for people, that's okay. If it's not, it doesn't. Yeah. But if I go down a layer under that, what that means is, what do? I suppose the clue is in the name of the company that I set up. Is I love to create spaces where people can think and reflect, and reflect about what's important to them, and how they how not just how they do their work, because that's an organizational part, but also how do they live. So that's my core thing. Is I love to help people to think around how they live, and also maybe going down a few levels, as opposed to just how do you do it well. It's not just about how. So it's not how do you become more efficient or more effective. It's actually, are you really clear on why you do what you're doing, and how does what you're doing impact others around you? Because I think sometimes we can get really focused on just doing the thing that I want to do, and we forget the impact that it has on other people.
Yes. So
that's a little bit. So there's, I suppose I'm not very good at having boundaries around what I do, though, as well. So I'm a creator. I'm quite creative. So I also do music, and I do poetry. I love how can we use music and poetry and storytelling to help people do that thinking. As opposed to just a traditional cognitive way of engaging with thinking and reflecting. And as part of that also is I love to use nature and outdoors as a way of doing that. I believe deeply that nature has an uncanny way of getting us to reflect, because it doesn't need something from us. So it has a very different relationship with us, and therefore that can create a great tool and process for thinking and feeling about what we do in the world.
So the space to think sounds like, to me, it's where you've created that which activism, which is your default first mode. Let's get in there, sort it out. But let's create a little space to think about what we're going to do and how it impacts.
Yeah.
So it's part of you. It's part of your persona.
It is. And one of the funny things was when I started it, I started it on my own, the company, and then I invited a friend of mine, a lovely friend called Andy Howie, who I've known worked with probably for now 25 years, and he came and was a co-director. And if there was a yin and a yang, and I was the activist, he was the contemplative. Do you know what I mean? And we used to have beautiful and challenging conversations around, I'd be like, here's an opportunity to do some work with an organization. I'd launch straight in, try and make it happen. And he'd be, why are we doing this? What's the real purpose of this? Let's sit on it for a while. And I'd feel like someone had put the brake on. And so I think I learned in relationship with someone else about that balance between action and contemplation. Yeah, and taking the time to really reflect and slow down. So I think sometimes the space to think was maybe an aspiration for myself, that I needed to learn how to do that, and then invited in another director who was really good at teaching me how to do that. And together we created some real balance.
So let me move on to the second one of your space to think questions, which is, why do you do what you do?
Why do I do?
Mm.
It's a great, yeah. They're good questions.
They're very good questions. I got them straight from the horse's mouth.
I should use these questions in my work. So yeah. So why? I think the why is probably a little bit more nuanced than it used to be. So I think when I was younger, the why would have been because, like I mentioned earlier, I would like, I look around at the world and I think, man, we're not doing such a good job. How can we do this differently? I want to leave the world in a better place. When I see a need, I want to fix it. I want to resolve it. And I always used to think that was probably part of my identity. Do you know what I mean? That making this difference in the world. I think so there's like a real, for me, there's a positive motivating factor in there, and I have 3 adult children, and one of them also, I can remember him saying to me when he was probably about 13, Dad, I want to make the world a better place. And I took a deep breath and thought, man, you might have an interesting life ahead of you then. Do you know what I mean? And I realized that, yes, that's a positive motivator. I really do want to leave the world in a better place, or the bit of the world that I can influence. And then I realized also there's the nuances. There's another part of me that is, going back to the sort of, the tradition that I grew up in, where being an activist and doing things and fixing people and fixing the world is valued. Yeah, the doing bit is valued. That was, the family culture and the Christian tradition that I grew up in, where, the heroes of the faith, if you like, were those that were out in the world reaching communities that never had been reached, without any thinking at all that actually what they were doing was bringing a load of damage and real pain. But their motivator was, we need to do something good out in the world. So I think there's these two bits, and I've realized that I'm having to unpick that second bit so that I can choose to do things in the world. Yeah. Because it's a helpful response, as opposed to a knee-jerk reaction to, I will feel better if I'm doing something that I perceive as doing good in the world. So I think there's a nuance that has appeared over the last sort of probably 10 years that I'm trying to understand a bit better, and realize that if I spend most of my time or more of my time doing what brings me joy and brings me alive, I will probably have most impact in the world. But that's a work in progress for me.
And currently, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Yeah, there are certain things that have have brought me joy all my life, and one of those is natural world, being out by the rivers, out in the hills, in the woods. It's one of the places that where I feel most content and most at peace, and so that brings me real joy. I love that. I feel bereaved if I don't get enough of that. It's not like, for me, it's not an option. If I don't do it, it really impacts me. So that's one thing that brings me joy. The other things that bring me a lot of joy are music. So I do a lot of singing, songwriting, and again, that's been with me since I was about 13. But I've been doing more of that over the last 5 or 6 years, and that's the place where I go to, where I disappear into time. Doesn't matter anymore. I'm just in a flow place. So that and writing poetry is something, again, that's appeared a little bit more over the last sort of couple of years. Lots of things bring me joy, actually. Life brings me joy. I think one of my moves away from being, in the activism space. So I did a lot of environmental activism and involved in social disobedience, and that's a really high pressured space. Do you know what I mean? It brings I found it really high pressured, and we're helping organising protests in London, and that we're bringing centre of London to a standstill, and then I realised that what I needed to do to counteract that level of activism was actually I needed to find more joy. And I suppose that's been the question for myself over the last probably 6 or 7 years, is how can I find more joy? How can I access the joy of my life as well as the activism bit? Because I felt like I probably naturally favor the activism and things need to be fixed. So I think the joy thing is the things that bring me life. Yeah, so nature, music, the poetry. I have an amazing relationship with a partner that brings me life, but there's something else alongside that, is about how do I access the joy of every day, the joy of being in my own skin, the joy and the curiosity of, wow, this human experience is a ride. It really is. And so just the joy of existing, I think it's something that I am learning to develop a little bit more.
Can I ask questions there, Rob?
Yeah, yes, you can.
Have you ever done any hypnosis was anybody done hypnosis on you?
I have done a long time ago, actually. Yeah, a long time ago.
Delved in to find out what archetype, animus and anima aspects of your personality and what program you're on, or more importantly, have you done any family constellations? I mean, your son has just stepped up. He wants to leave the world in a better place. So obviously in the family constellation line of thing, it usually goes down 7 generations. So who's pricked you to sort of do what you've gone and done? And so that's why I come back to ask, what archetype you're on and whether or not hypnosis would reveal it to you.
Yeah, I think it's really, one of the things that's really interesting, based on your conversation, Jeffrey, is that, or your question, that I think as a family, I have lots of conversations around where in our family system does this stuff appear from, and also what is mine to carry on and what's not. Because I think I think there's something around, especially with my kids. So, for example, one of my children is a great musician; she's a great singer, and that whole there's these positive things that come in through the family, but then there's also these, I suppose, the heritage of the pressure to be something as well that comes. If I think about my dad, I think for most of his life probably felt really trapped. That's my sense. And I sometimes hear my kids say, oh, I feel a bit trapped. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about that, because I'm not sure that that's fully mine or yours. It feels like there's a family sort of family pattern, family system. So so I haven't done any hypnosis stuff around it, but I suppose it's something that I'm drawn to and do some work around, and then doing a little bit more work around sort of internal family systems.
Sure.
Mm.
Well, your father would have come through the depression and wars.
War and
and so it all comes back to a period of lack.
So,
it wasn't the handouts and all the stuff that was in the last 70, 80, 90. Now we've got the people who are coming in now and getting hotels and everything's handed to them plate, whereas the people who've come through all that time of depression and the wars and all that stuff, they've had to go and graft and grift it to be able to accomplish anything as a community. The community gardens, and it's a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
It was, and I think added to that, if I look back at the family tradition or the family heritage, is that side of actually both of my parents' family came from really strict or quite austere Christian backgrounds. Do you know what I mean? So they had the cultural stuff around, the depression and wartime, and also they had this other element to it as well, which was quite. So my mum they were in the Brethren, the Brethren movement. Some of them extreme ones had their church windows blacked out, so you couldn't see the outside world. Do you know what I mean? So there's all that. So I think there's this unpicking of realizing, oh, right, that's part of my heritage. What are the bits that I don't need to take on, and helping my kids do unpacking that stuff as well.
Yeah, because our first co-host, she was a lady who did hypnosis and did the family constellations, and she had some great successes there in cutting the cords. The new soul that's come in to actually propagate and move on to a new paradigm.
I have here.
I've got you've got me thinking, Jeffrey. So I just went into a deep thinking, reflecting, then thinking, So I suppose what I'm reflecting on is the times when, I've been able to access some of that, like cutting the cords sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And the power of that. And then I suppose what I was laughing internally was when as my children were growing up, I think they must have been about, the oldest one must have been about 15, and I was really quick to say, at some point, and as soon as you feel okay to do it, it's really important that you go and find someone to do your own work with around cutting the cords with my lineage and how I've parented and what I've brought that you don't need to carry. Do you know what I mean? And I can, so that feels like a healthy process for them, and they're all finding their different ways to do that. And
so what you're saying is your daughter's not going to find a fellow, like she's going to marry her father. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm hoping she'll marry who she needs to marry. Do you know what I mean? And let's go of the expectation of I need to be in a particular way in the world because that's how my dad was, and that's how my dad thinks we should be in the world. And do you know what I mean? Just helping them unpick that stuff. And I can always tell when they're in the process of that, because when I meet up with them, they'll say, "Hey, Dad, can we have a conversation about something?" And I'm thinking, "All right, what's coming?" And we have a real good laugh about, I'm really, and I think part of me that breaking the bond, if you like, or the cords, partly for me, the experience of that is being able to sit with my own kids and to laugh and sometimes and to cry and to say it's okay to let go of that stuff. You don't have to carry that. That's not yours to carry. That was mine. And I think there's something really healthy in that. And it's not as straightforward as that, but I think, I'm grateful for the times when I see that happening.
Hey, sorry to take the questions there, Pauline, but
it's okay. It's cool.
It was when the daughter actually finds a bloke and he's really nice and treats her like a queen and all that stuff, and then finally she brings him home to meet mum, dad, and the brothers and family and all that stuff, and the guy's a perfect gentleman, and then just amazing. You know? So anyway, bottom line is, when she sends the guy off out the door and then comes back in, and the brother and the father said, "What the?" You know, and so bottom line is, if she wants to, because most mothers know that she's going to lose her son to another woman, and that woman's going to take her back to her nest where she's got her relationship with her mum. So with this daughter who gets a bloke that's not going to go really well with her father and her brothers, mate, that bloke gets the flick, and she has to find someone who's going to be acknowledged and accepted by her father and her brothers. Because if she wants to bring them over for a barbecue and wants to have a chat with her mum, well, they've got to get on with the father-in-law and the brothers-in-laws, because they're going to go and play golf, or they're going to go surfing, or they want to go to football. You know, we're in a different world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm waiting for that to happen. I will have to I'll work with that one when it comes. Yeah, but no, but I do get. I think it's really fascinating, isn't it? How I was married for 28 years, and separated a few years ago, and I've done a lot of reflecting about how do we choose partners? Why do we choose partners? What is it we're hoping to get from that relationship, and what are the patterns that we're bringing into that relationship? So why we make those choices. So yeah, I've done a lot of reflecting around that. How do we end up with the partners we end up with?
True. I mean, there's a great story was sent to us last week that some psychiatrist said, Jeff, the marriages come to an end because they've got the life of the smorgasbord of going out, and like a smorgasbord is food, and you're taking samples and all that stuff, and then you bring it back to the home life, and you can share those stories and all that stuff. It gets to a point that you just get off, and then you come back and you're sitting on the couch, and the TV's in the going in the background, basically, and then she's on her phone scrolling, and you're on your phone scrolling, and the art of communication has died, and then basically the essence of being able to go out on a date night no longer exists. The flirtation has stopped because you become compatible to the point, you know everything about that person, and there's no fresh food coming on the table in the sense of knowledge and communicating all the different, well, I'm calling it a smorgasbord of life.
Yeah.
You've got to get out and about.
I had a really interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago about this, about also different people. We want different things from relationships. So for some, it's like, I want a companion, I want a friend. Do you know what I mean? For others, and I think I realize that this is the same for me, I want someone with whom I can explore what it means to be a human being. Yeah, that's what really interests me. So the companionship's great, and we'll do things together. But at the heart of it is, I want someone who can be a mirror to me, so I can see more of myself, and in an intimate relationship. Do you know what I mean? And I've realised that not everybody wants that, because that can be a bit intense. That can be a bit, because me and current partner, we're quite curious about our own behaviours. We're quite curious about how we relate to each other and why we do certain things. And so, do you know what I mean? So there's always this curiosity, and it's the place where we learn about what it means to be a human being. And I realise that for some people, that's not the relationship they want. So it was really interesting. It was really helpful for me to realise what I'm looking for and what I get from a relationship. What brings me joy in a relationship is probably sometimes what is very uncomfortable for other people. I want to have the conversations in a relationship that sometimes people will shy away from. That's uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? Well, I'm like, no, that's where the learning is. That for me, that's where the uncomfortableness and the joy is.
So would you say that's more of you come from a headspace all the time? Like you're processing and you're articulating this more in the headspace, and you've got to move that from the headspace into the heart space, and really emotionally, come to a point where you're the touchy-feely, like the 5 gifts, the 5 love languages.
Yeah. I think that's always going to be a continual learning thing for me because I have an analytical brain. But it's not just about that finding out about myself as a human being in a relationships, not about just an analytical thing. It's about a felt thing. It's about felt body, emotional learning as well, not just a head thing. So it's not just an analysis of a relationship. It's the learning to experience a relationship in its fullness, in it emotionally. So I think that that's always I come from a family of thinkers. Do you know what I mean? So I'm aware that's probably part of my learning at the moment is how do I do that learning from a real emotional point of view as well.
So you need to get an Italian woman.
I'm really happy with my current partner grew up in South America. I think I'm.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay, I got it.
Not that you're making any generalizations at all, but yes, I get what. Yeah.
Pauline, you take over. Just
No, you're doing so well. I recognize the yes, the stereotypical get yourself an Italian woman. They're very feisty, very fiery, and yeah, very feeling. Okay, very funny. Anyway, moving on. You have Moving Parts. This is Rob's book that arrived yesterday. It's a book of poems that he's written, and I wanted to have a look at one of them. Or I picked out two of them. I went through them, and there's a very beautiful one on page 26, which is Stage. I choose to speak my life, untamed, wild and generous, to stand on the edge of spoken word and speak words, unread and proclaimed voices unheard. So what's the story behind this?
The story behind this, that's great. I was really worried about you then choosing a poem. Thinking, which one are you going to choose? It's like, oh no. Yeah, so okay, that one. Okay, it's really interesting. I think going back to when your questions that you asked earlier about what do I do? I have spent 25, 30 years working with groups of people. And when I first started, that was groups of, we would describe as excluded or vulnerable young people. So sometimes in housing projects, sometimes rough sleepers, sometimes in prisons. And often their voices hadn't been heard. Okay. So I've spent a lot of time in my life creating spaces where other people's voices can be heard. Mm-hmm. And this poem is about actually, I am choosing now to speak my life. I think I've had 35, and it's not that was wrong. It's great. I've had those years of creating spaces for other people to speak their truth, to speak their lives. And now I want to do the same for me. So that's about the poetry, and I want to speak my life, and there is something about I don't have a fear of it, but I'm quite happy to be quite raw about my own life. You know what I mean? So some of the poems in this book I've sent to friends to read, and they've said, "Oh, Rob, that's a bit raw." A bit, and I think for me, maybe that's something that's really beneficial. I find it beneficial. I wonder if it's beneficial for us to be more truthful about and honest about the rawness of life sometimes. So that's what that poem is about. It's an invite for me to get out on life stage, to perform more, to sing more, to write more songs, to read more poetry. Do you know what I mean? And to share my voice with people as well as continue to give others their voice. But there's something about there's a shift of balance for me that is happening currently.
So if there were a poem in your book that you would choose to give to the world, which one of them would you be? Because I've picked one, and there was another one that I was quite taken with, but I'll hand it back over to you.
What's the one you chose first?
So,
First one I chose was page 26 and then 36. Stage was the first one, and then I looked at page 36, that one, but
oh yeah.
about the duality, certainly uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is actually I think she's listening. Actually, this is about my partner, and about the invite. So here, we're going to go back to the activism sort of part. I did a lot of work around sort of with an organisation. I don't know if I think they were in Australia as well, Extinction Rebellion, and they're a mixed review,
Yes.
mixed thoughts around. That's fine, and so I would go and do talks for people around climate stuff, climate crisis, climate emergency. What's the potential of us if we don't do anything, we don't respond? So actually, one of the things that I've learned through my relationship is that there's almost like something really helpful about going, yeah, man, we are a funny species. Do you know what I mean? And actually, we do some weird, funny stuff. And sometimes to be able to laugh at our own mortality is really important. So that's what that poem came from. There's something about that, yeah, that her ability to laugh at, yeah, we may disappear off the face of the earth. Wow, yeah, that's funny. Some other species will come along and have their turn and try and work out their way of how to be on the world. So there was something about a lightness. That's where the poem started, but also, going back to what I was saying about our relationship, that the comfortably uncertain and certainly uncomfortable. Yeah, there's a mixture of I like the play around paradoxes and things that don't always sit next to each other. I think that's been part of my learning around, activism and contemplation, joy and pain. Do you know what I mean? How do these things sit together? So that was where the poem came from. Shall I read it?
There is yes, go ahead if that's one. Yeah, go on. It seems a bit yin and yangish, doesn't it? As you mentioned before, like you say, the dualism and the unity. So go for it.
Yeah. So it's called Certainly Uncomfortable. You look into the face of extinction and smile at the possibility of our burning. Roll your head back and laugh at the notion of our ending and our potential rebirth. You stay deeply connected yet not attached, deeply moved but not immovable, magically shy and courageously magical, comfortably uncertain and certainly uncomfortable. You are whole yet scattered to the winds, a nesting mother while a vagrant friend, uncontained yet containing, safe in a risky sort of way. You. I think you were saying about the the yin and the yang and the paradoxes or the tensions. And I was talking to someone the other day about that, this notion of, actually it might have been you when we had a conversation the other day, Priti, around the drop in the ocean. It's an individual drop, yet it is also the ocean. It's not separate. And I quite like with playing around that that notion of us being one thing and also another. So it's not the duality. So playing with where can we play with the duality, and what happens when they sit together. So something is comfortable yet uncomfortable at the same time, and whatever. Yeah, safe and risky. So I think that's one thing I'm learning to do in life, is put in the and as opposed to but. So as opposed to something is safe but risky, it's safe and risky.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of truth in that. And in the digital world, that which I know, and I know what I don't know, and I don't know, I knew that. And then there's this massive, I don't know what I don't know. So the business of risky and safe.
Yeah.
Excellent. So back to my third question that came from Space to Think. Here we are. How can you do what you do best?
I pause because I'm like that. I think that's I'm having to apply that in so many ways to sort of my own life. So I've been if I think about creativity, so if I think about songwriting or poetry or maybe creative leadership programs or whatever, I think I'm learning that when I'm at my best, I'm turning up with my creativity every day. Yeah, I'm turning up and I'm separating it from an outcome. So what I mean by that is, one of the things I've noticed. So I noticed a few months ago when I would sit down in the evening and I would have my guitar and I'd be bored because you pick up your guitar and it's like something you're used to. You go back to the thing you know. So I'd be playing a few chords and that's boring. Nothing new's coming. And then I realized that if I put my guitar down at that moment, that was the wrong moment to put it down. What I needed to do was stay with the boredom, just turn up and just sit with it, just stay with it. And then I started to realize that quite often what would happen is 2.5 hours later, an idea would just appear from nowhere. And it might have been I made a mistake in one of my chords, so a finger went somewhere it shouldn't have gone, or just a thought or an idea appears in my head about a song, and then I'm off. But that happens because I stayed with the boredom. I stayed with the stuff that felt a bit uncomfortable and what's going on here? Nothing's coming. So I think when I'm at my best, I turn up, and I turn up without the expectation that anything great's going to come out of it. I just turn up and I put in my work. And I think I'm learning more and more that when I do that, creativity turns up. Something turns up. Ideas turn up. I love the stuff that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about, in her book, Big Magic, about ideas float around in the world and they're looking for people who will give them attention. And they'll move from one person to the next. They're just ideas. Ideas have their own, they're sentient. They have life, and they're looking for someone to bring them into the world. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is there's a difference between what are the things that I want to create and what are the things that want to be created, and they're different. Yes. And I think when I'm at my best, I'm more open to what is it that wants to be created in the world and how can I be available for that to be created. So I think when I'm at my best, I'm in that space. When I'm working at my best, and this is to do with not just music or poetry, it's to do with I design some leadership programs and try and do that in quite a way that's a bit disruptive to the normal way of thinking around business and leadership. And it's the same that in that field, when I can let go of the outcome and just enjoy the process of creating something, that's when I'm at my best. As soon as when I hold on to a specific outcome, something shuts down in me. So yeah, so turning up, maybe separating myself a bit from the outcome, and reminding myself that I'm okay as a human. I'm all right. I've got nothing to prove, really. I'm all right. And a bit, I can be kinder to myself, take less pressure on myself, take the pressure off myself, and just enjoy being myself in the world. That I think that's part of it as well. That's when I'm at my best.
Yeah. And it's also a maturation process.
Yeah. I wish I could have gone and told myself when I was 25. And you can save yourself a lot of pain here and a lot of suffering.
Yeah. Pain is a ripening agent.
Yeah.
I've interviewed a lot of people who are creative. The authors are the ones that are really interesting, and that's there's two types of authors. There's the ones who academically construct themselves with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah. But quite often you don't find any emotion attached to those type of books. And then the other one is Seats of the Pants.
Yeah.
And the Pants is one particular lady here in Australia. She's written 13 books. In fact, 4 of them are all trilogies, so that's 12. And then she got so many people bloody hitting her up that she had to go back to a prequel to start the process. Yeah. And as you read the book, you can emotionally connect with the scenes that have been projected. And so I saw in your homepage here about reimagining. I think it was the focus. And so those particular Seats of the Pants authors, they take you on the journey of imagination where you actually become part of the story, like the story. Yeah. And I noticed that when I've spoken to some of those people, they talk about the muse, where they will go off into the bush like you talked about, or they go off for a swim, and basically it's all about getting rebalanced with the negative ions. So they're so filled up with positive ions, they need to go and have a discharge and get the negative ions to get them back into balance. And when they do something mundane like washing the dishes or even throwing the rubbish out in the rubbish bin, they get those ideas, or the shower and the water neutralizes the positive ions. And then they go in the flow. And then with musicians, Neil H. would just sit at the keyboard and he would just go with the flow. And he learned early on to put his recording on because the music was just flowing through. Yeah. So, it's a bit of an art form to be able to release and let go, eh?
Yeah, no, I recognise that. And there's something you said when you were talking there, Jeffrey, about there's almost if I'm in the excitable mode, do you know what I mean? That's probably I can write a great song and I like this tune, I like that idea. That's when I probably write something that I want to write. But when I go into that other space, which like, the boredom or whatever, or the, talking about the mundaneness, that's when the other thing appears. And I think and that's something I'm in the process of. You talk about doing off the seat of your pants. One of my favorite things is I love to finish a song or nearly finish a song in the afternoon and then go and perform it in the evening. And that as you're performing it, you're working out which bits work really well and which bits don't really work so well, but you're doing it in front of a group of people. I love it. It's like a real, you feel like, well, there's no divide here. I've got no safety. I don't even know if I'll remember the song. And actually, I don't even know if it's going to work. So I really like that process of sort of that, if you like. Yeah.
Do you finish the songs when you do it like that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. And sometimes there are 2 or 3 iterations, because it feels like there's an energy exchange that happens with people who are listening. There's something that happens. You think, oh, this bit feels a bit flat. There's something about the energy leaves. All right, okay. So there is something about whether it's an energy exchange or there's something that happens with an audience that you start to realize, that bit works, that doesn't, I'll go away and change it a bit. So I tend to finish them, and I'm getting better at discarding the ones that aren't good and just say, nah, that was just me, that's me trying to create something as opposed to something that wanted to be created. I'll just leave that.
Have we had Mary Rodwell?
No.
So she's into extraterrestrials, UFOs. Started off life as a nurse, became a DC nurse. Then she moved into hypnosis. Anyway, in there, she had all these young kids come in, and they come into her room, and they would go, boom, straight in. She had this humongous big bloody poster, and they all came in and knew exactly what that poster, the picture that was in the poster. But an adult come in, adult wouldn't even bloody contemplate what was going on there, but those kids did. Anyway, she calls them the new humans. And so their skill was not reading a book. Their skill was you give them the book of the author, and they pick up the book, and they would then psychometrize not the book, but the energy of the author. And then so they would tune in onto the actual author's energy that had been imprinted in the book to the point, that's truth. No, full of shit. Boom, boom. So that's the way, it's the new paradigm for the young ones who've got this ability to tune into the energy. Yeah.
Have you listened to the I've forgotten what it's called. There's something tapes. I've forgotten what it's called.
Telepathic or Celestine?
The telepathy tapes.
Telepathy
tapes.
I picked that up on telepathy.
Okay, yeah. But there's something around this they did a lot of work, a lot of research around non-verbal autistic young people, and some of the stuff we're beginning to find around their ability to just to see and feel and connect with things with way beyond what we do. And I think, I'm really interested in how, so I'm sort of in my facilitation, the coaching, and sort of therapist as well. I'm really fascinated by what happens when you turn up in a room and then you get a picture about someone in your head, and you don't know them, but you get a picture, and then you say, I've got this picture in my head, and they'll go, whoa, how'd you know that? Oh, that's weird. And it's like, how do we learn to access or be open to that more and more? And I'm sort of, that's something I'm sort of learning a little bit more about, and trusting that whether it's a part of me or it's a part of just the collective consciousness. How can I be more open to that so I can hear more of that and access more of that?
Well, I think in religion, you had to go through a middleman called a priest.
Yeah.
But today it's a free phone call. You can get it direct to the source.
Yeah. That's easy for you to say when you're brought up I've been brought up in a tradition where there is always a middleman, and there has to be a middleman. It's it's been, and I agree with you fully, but I think for me it's been a really interesting journey to let go of that. There needs to be a middleman, and almost there needs to be a giving away of my power or my ability to connect with the other. Do you know what I mean? I've been taught to give that away. So it's been really interesting, in my own journey, just refinding something different about that.
Of course, yeah. If you can ask for a car park and you manifest a car park, you're on the road for self-enlightenment, aren't you?
Yeah, I had a really weird experience about that once, a long time ago, about the manifesting an empty car park space and doing it, and then walking into and walking into it was a spiritualist church, and I was in there to set up a PA system for them, and I'd mentioned something, and they realized that I was from a Christian background, and then she made some comment about praying for car parking spaces. And I think, well, that's a bit weird. I just did that and got one. And it was just, yeah. So I think of that thing. What is going on here? There's something going on here that, you know, I'm not quite aware of. So, yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I think this whole thing about there not being a middleman or a middle person or a middle thing. Yeah, I think, yeah, we're some parts of society, some parts of the world, we're learning that. We're learning that.
Yeah. No middleman.
Yeah. And yet we still put middlemen in, or middle people in.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, most of the
What
days,
you've been saying.
sorry, religion always gets caught up in the idol and not the ideal, isn't it? That's the issue. So if you can follow in the footsteps of the ideal, you've become a far greater individual in terms of manifestation, and be a light to other people around you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm reminded of Victor Hugo when he says that there's nothing more potent or powerful than an idea whose time has come.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to some of the things that you said earlier. I'm interested to explore with you, if you're willing, how you've experienced burnout.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of how, there are two bits there: how I experienced it and how I got there. Yeah. I think how I got there was, I suppose, an unhealthy belief that I was important or intrinsic to someone else's liberation. So
that
I was
so lovely.
Yeah, but I think that's how I got there. Do you know what I mean? The times when I've nearly, it's like, I have to do this. It's really important that I do this, and I have to be there, and you know, someone else can't do it. And for me, at one point in my life, I was running a national project in the UK, which was setting up projects with young people, and led by them to, I suppose, find a way through or out of what was described as their particular experience of social exclusion. And I would leave the house at 3 o'clock in the morning so I could drive to the other end of the country to meet a group when I was ill. And I did that for years, you know, and it's almost like this martyrdom. Part of me, you know, that, you know, I've got to go. If I go the extra mile all the time, if I burn myself out, it shows that I'm really committed. And then I think after, you know, I can remember lying on the sofa, really depressed, thinking, this isn't working. Something about this is not working for me. And had to really, and fortunately, had a really good boss who was able to, as opposed to put pressure on me, was able to take, just let me take pressure off myself and start to relearn how to have a different balance with that. So, for example, I can remember meeting her I was in my car driving to meet her for a meeting, and there were some beautiful hills that I know quite well just on the side of the road. And the big part of me thought, you know, what I really want to do is just go for a walk on the hills. I don't want to go into a meeting in an office. I want to go and walk on the hills and restore myself. And I got the part of, I can't. I'm meeting my boss, and she's travelled, 2 hours on the train to meet me. So I got there and I said to her, that's the thought I had. And she said, you should have rung me and just gone for a walk on the hills. And from that day on, I realised, actually, I've been giving an invitation now to listen to my body differently, and to listen to my inner world differently. And the only reason that I won't respond to it is me. It's not because my boss is going to put pressure on me. She's not going to. So I think I learned to start putting things, to live differently. And I've got better at noticing when I'm not doing that. So listening to my body, what's going on in my body. Oh, my jaw's really clenched. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. Oh, right, I'm feeling some stuff. Right, there's an indicator that I need to do something slightly different. So I think I've got better at recognizing the signals. But it's an ego thing. That's what gets me there. I think I'm the only person that can do something. And I think
having experienced.
carry on. Yeah.
Having experienced the burnout, how do you get through it and come out the other side so that you haven't actually literally burnt yourself out, that there is some way of dusting yourself off, picking yourself up and starting all over again?
Okay. Yeah, I sort of said earlier, one of the things that brings me joy is nature.
Yeah.
That is a huge part of my restoration.
Yeah.
I can remember being I'd gone into Bristol, which was a city in the southwest of England, and it's quite a nice city actually. And I'd gone in one day and I just felt my body going, oh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by these people, by the amount of people. I'd gone into a big shopping centre and I felt my body say, I have had enough. So what I did was I said, right, I'm going to get out of the city and I'm going to go and I'm just going to walk in the woods. And I can feel it really quickly for me. I connect with, being outdoors, walking, whether it's walking, swimming, cycling. There's something about being outside in nature that really restores me really quickly. So what I try and do now is build those things in and take myself out when I notice the symptoms. Yeah. But I think I am getting better at that. And I made some choices. I think I made some really deliberate, conscious choices about it as well. So going back to this boss that I had, who was quite an inspiring lady, amazing. She said to me, "Oh, you do more than what you need to do." She said, "So I don't expect you to work in August. I don't expect to see you." So I don't think I've worked in August since, and that was 25 years ago. It just set something up in me about, right, I need to take that time for me. And then it's like, oh, actually, when I ran my own company, I'm not going to work school holidays. Okay. So it's almost like I made conscious choices about how do I make sure that I have time to restore myself.
I just turned you off.
Are you building a winter?
So
that's when nature is a built-in winter.
Yeah, I'm not so good at wintering, but I understand. Yeah, it's something I'm learning. Yeah, to allow myself just to stop, slow down, allow my body to restore.
Yeah, I have noticed also when I go to sleep, sometimes it's well worth. I look forward to going to sleep because I know in the morning whatever's been bothering me during the day will have resolved itself. And it's the time when I cut off that rational mind and allow those other forces to enter and give that spark, like you said, in the boredom, something will just come.
Yeah.
Is that something that resonates with you?
It is. I have a funny relationship with sleep because I didn't used to get enough, but I have realised over the years that you go back to what do I do to make sure that I don't just fully burn out? It's I will consciously say, oh, I'm going to go to bed really early. I'm going to sleep. Yeah, and I think I've got much better at trusting my body and my mind to restore themselves while I'm asleep. Yeah. So I am. That's one of the things I am getting better at.
Mm. So in effect, sleeping is space not to think.
Yes, that's. I often think that one of the things that me and my co-director talked about was the dilemma of the space to think is actually, yes, that actually there needs to be time not to think. Yeah, and that's I think I've part of the activism and the contemplation is also about an active brain, an active mind is always trying to solve things, trying to work things out, and then also how I just allow my brain time not to do the thinking, and I am learning that. From
So
daily practice and stuff. Yeah.
So marinate in all that thinking and let it go, and somewhere,
yeah, and
something will come from it.
Yeah, we did have like a little project called sort of Space to Be Human, which is part of Space to Think, and we've been doing some podcasts, and one of the podcasts we did was about the stories that have shaped our lives. There's the different stories, and I think I am aware that I have some really strong stories that I'm attached to mentally, and learning to let go of those has been really, really important.
Okay. So what's one of those strong stories that you've been attached to that you've let go of?
That to be of value, I need to make difference.
Okay. Making a difference.
Yeah. So I am of value if I make a difference in the world. I need to be productive. I need to make good use of every moment of the day. Those are really strong stories, and that I am a lot less attached to. But they are the big stories, and that's been a real journey around the creativity. So creativity is not. I had strong messages from people who were older than me. My parent, my dad, and other sort of significant men. I wouldn't worry too much about your music.
Okay.
So you when you're young, you think, oh, okay, why not? I won't. So I think there are things like that I've let go of, but I am aware that they're strong. There have been strong stories. The one about productivity is probably a big. That's a strong story, which is I am continually unpicking. But I need to be doing something.
All right. So when it comes to activism meets contemplation, what does that space look like?
What does that space look like? Okay, it's almost like a reversing of orders. So historically, there's a trigger, there's a need, there's something that I see needs to be changed, and I rush in.
Okay.
And then I reflect afterwards. As opposed to what is shifting, what it looks like now is I'm getting better at, okay, here's the thing here's the trigger thing for me, or the invite that I see in the world to do something. And it's almost like, all right, let's just be a bit still. Let's be quiet. Let's sit with that. Let's understand how that's impacting me. What part of me is being touched by this thing that I'm seeing in the world? And then maybe let's just sit with it for a while and still see if I need to do something. And if so, what do I need to do? So it's almost like the action and the contemplation have swapped places.
So that space in between is still and quiet.
Yeah.
When you allow it to be.
Yeah. And I move away from trying to solve it in my head.
So as from a still, quiet place, Is there anything you'd like to say now?
From a still, quiet place. I think the thing comes up for me is maybe the world is just where it needs to be. Maybe where I am just where I need to be.
Mm-hmm. Everything is just so.
As it is, yeah. And I think the thing that arises for me when the more I slow down, is to continue to do the things that bring me life.
The joie de vivre.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because when
the pursuit of joy.
Yeah, the pursuit of joy.
And the joy isn't just ecstasy, it's a quiet contemplative. There's a depth to that joy that isn't exuberant and isn't ecstatic. That would be a good
yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
that's a really good description. Yeah, it's a really good description.
Cool.
And even the reflecting on it, do you know what I mean? I feel I can feel the shift in me as just the slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
Because the activism has pace to it, because it's got to happen now.
Yeah.
And it's like that, as opposed to for me the contemplation, the stillness and the silences, as those time scales matter less.
Mm-hmm.
The urgency disappears.
Well, here in the northern hemisphere, we're entering into springtime, and things will spring into action, and nature will spring. The buds that are all tightly closed within a week, they're all going to be out there. So we have naturally around us an energy that is very active. It's closed and it's waiting to. And even now, it's February, and the daffodils have been out for quite some time where I am, which is a little bit. I was expecting them in 2 months' time, but here they are.
Yeah.
So in Australia, you must be in the contemplative mode. Are you coming into autumn now?
Mate, we're in Queensland. We have 2 seasons, the wet and the dry. So the wet is like November, December, February, the cyclone season. People come to Queensland because from about May, June, July, August, which is winter, people come up because of the sunshine. And that's like 23 degrees, 24, 25 degrees.
All right.
Yeah. And that's the dry.
So Australia's quite polarised then?
Well, Victoria, Victoria and Tasmania, you'll get the bloody 4 seasons, won't you? In Melbourne, you get 4 seasons in a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
But hey, Rob, bringing this to a close, is there any questions that I haven't asked that you would like that I would have done to explore more about Rob Husband?
No, I've enjoyed the process of having my own questions thrown back at me.
You have to change your name to Rob Wife.
Yes. I have a really good friend of mine who died over Christmas, and he always used to say to me, we used to go walking together and do music together and loads of stuff together, and sometimes he would get really, really challenging with me. Ask me really uncomfortable questions and be quite direct and challenging. And if he saw me feeling uncomfortable at all, he'd just say, "I'm only doing what you do."
So before you go, what star sign are you?
I'm a Libra.
A Libra, okay. All right, there you go.
So what do you make from that?
Well, Aries usually come from a headspace, but Librans, they're really analytical and they sometimes can't make decisions, you know. But
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, my take on that is that you can't hurry a good decision, and then you can always make another one.
Run that again, sorry.
I said that you can't hurry a good decision, and you can always make another one very quickly as well.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's the 4 words that a lot of fellas have had to say over their life, and it's called I do, yes, dear. I understand.
Yes, you do. It's genius. I do, and yes, dear.
I'm sure.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
Rob, does that? I do. Yes, dear.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not sure that I would. I think there may be another conversation around that.
Oh, because your partner's listening to the show.
No. I come from a really, really strong male heritage, like 4 brothers.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? So I probably have a working out what does it mean to be a healthy male? You know, what does masculine mean, and therefore how do we communicate about our relationships and stuff? So
yeah, big subject.
Yeah.
We'll have to get back on that one, mate.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, there's something quite ironic about Mr. and Mrs. Husband.
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. My kids have grown up with lots of jokes around them.
Sure.
Ah, okay. Mr. and Mrs. Husband. I do, yes, dear.
Yeah.
All right.
Hilarious. Sorry.
Yeah, bloody brilliant, Rob. Thank you very much for sharing your time and
It's cool.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been great.
Yeah, it was very good to talk. Been very interesting. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your stories about burnout and relationships and the space to think. And we experienced that while we've been here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.